Hey, great. Let's talk radio. We're good. Hi, good morning, councils, interested parties. We're back on the record in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Khalif Adams et al., 22 SC 183572. Mr. Stillwell, Mr. Botts. Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Williams, Mr. Steele, Mr. Adams, and Mr. Renard, good morning. All right, Mr. Kenrick and Ms. Hingerty, good morning. Good morning, Your Honor. All right, Mr. Huey and Mr. Matthews, Jr. and Sr., good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Nichols, Mr. Harvey, Ms. Westmoreland, good morning. Mr. Ryan and Misty Williams. All right. Ms. Hilton and Mr. Brown, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Right.
Good morning, Your Honor.
All right, Sergeant Ingram, are all of our jurors present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, Anthony, are you ready with witnesses, Ms. Hilton?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Steele, I'd like to have one morning where you don't rise to, and I just go ahead and can call my jury. Just one morning.
No, not today.
All right, not today. Okay, all right, okay, all right, not today. All right, just work on it, okay? All right, okay, what does he want to tell me, sir?
Two things. One, we have no opposition.
Hold on, wait. Got to watch the door, okay? All right, three things. One, you have no opposition to what, sir?
We request Officer Harris is going to be a witness. You're on record instruct that his face not be videoed as a plainclothes police officer. Ask me to make that request. I'm confident the state knows about that. And they,
Okay, has that been communicated to our members of the media?
I will do that.
Okay, well, okay. When's Mr. Harris going to testify?
I believe you're talking about Mr. Henry, Your Honor.
Mr. Henry?
It's okay. He will be witness number 5.
Okay, before we get to that, just remind me and I'll remind our members of the media.
Yes, Your
Okay,
Honor.
that's
Thank you,
one.
Mr. Steele, for that.
That's one. Okay, who else, sir? What else?
We have two motions. Mr. Greer, over objection, he's not a party here on this case before the Sound Court trial, but state, with the court permission, is going to introduce. It's a 2020 incident. He's in a gas station parking lot, allegedly struck.
Thank you, Monsieur.
And the law enforcement officers stopped him. There's another person with a gun too. But I believe that law enforcement was under the belief that he's a convicted felon for murder, so they charged him with the death of a firearm by a convicted felon. What I'd like the court to note and to order is that the officers not be allowed to say that he was not a convicted felon. His motion to trial was actually granted, and he won that case in the Georgia Supreme Court to not be a convicted felon. So I make a motion limited to exclude that convicted felon.
And this is in regards to, again, sir?
Montavious Greer.
All right. And what's the incident date again?
2020, let me get my note. Mr. Harvey took over September 5.
All right. Ms. Hilton, are you all intending to talk about that at all?
Your Honor, we'll instruct the officer not to
Mention anything about him being a convicted felon? Right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that will be briefed. Which officer is going to testify about that?
That is going to be Officer Dwayne Thomas.
So you're going to have a conversation with Officer Thomas about that, right?
There were two officers actually, the other gentleman.
Who's the other officer?
Investigator McKessie.
Investigator McKessick?
Yes,
McKessie.
McKessie?
Yes, sir.
All right, so both of those will be instructed accordingly, correct?
Yes, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown's going to do that.
All right.
Thank you.
3?
The last one, Your Honor. This is regarding the 2015, it's an alleged armed robbery. Mr. Myrick and two other people were not here, Your Honor. Mr. Matthews and Mr., I believe it's Price, are allegedly arm robbing a young lady. There's a gun put into her face. Supposedly, there's a ring doorbell that ran. Law enforcement does investigation. The arrest. Mr. Meyer is not on trial with and the other two persons of his name. And supposedly, Mr. Meyer, as well as the other two people, pursuant to interrogation, they waived their Miranda rights, allegedly admitted that they are part of a criminal street gang, YSL, and that they were doing this armed robbery and other crimes to raise $25 to pay initiation fees. That's according to the belief. Unless those witnesses testify, that would be a competition clause violation. It would not be part of any conspiracy. It would be, as you know, the Stafford, which we cited earlier, quote, spilling the beans, or does it come under the statute? Either way, it's a violation of the Constitution. So we would ask that the witnesses be instructed not to mention any interrogation of those three non-testifying parties.
Any,
Your Honor, if I could have a moment for that particular motion,
I would like to be able to,
look up some case law. That act is going this afternoon, and so we just have a moment just to look.
is Mr. Who is the witness again, Mr. Steele? I'm sorry.
That's going to be
Mr.
Detective, or actually, Sergeant Logan, LOG.
And he's going to testify about Mr. The three people are again, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Mr. Myrick, who is in code IT.
All right, Mr. Myrick, okay, but the other three,
Other two.
is Mr. Myrick going to testify consistent with what you just told me about the raising the $25? And he's a member of YSL?
To my knowledge, no.
All right,
He's a severed code IT.
okay,
The other two people are not on the state's witness list.
okay.
And that was, again, Mr. Matthews, like the Honorable Carton, and then Mr. Price.
All right, so, Madam, you wish to have a little time to think about that?
yes, Your Honor.
All right, I guess my question for you, you're planning on calling Myrick, or does that particular issue with, the issue with Matthews and Price, are they in any way charged in the indictment, or?
Matthews and Price are not charged in this indictment, and
Okay,
at this time, I think there's a decision being made on what media will be coming into evidence, and so I just want to get some clarity, because we might be able to resolve it if the media isn't coming in at all, or there's no intentions to bring in the media, so I just need to learn that information.
okay, all right, well, we need to take that up accordingly before Sergeant Logan or testifies, okay?
Definitely, Your Honor.
All right, anything else, Mr. Steele? That's your three things.
That's right.
All right, anybody else? Okay, seminar jurors for us, Sergeant Ingram. Thank you.
Oh, and Your Honor, as they're coming in, may we approach briefly? It will take about 1.
Stop, just don't, I can't get granularity out of anybody, Sergeant Ingram. All right, come on up.
Sorry.
No, you're not.
I get the information as I walk back into the door.
Can I have a representative, please? Okay, it's talk radio. Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
That's the one on this wall right here.
Now, it should be, yes. Right, correct. So number 1.
Yeah, okay, all right. All right, anything else?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anybody else? Okay, I think now we can summon our jury, Sergeant Ingram. Christina, here's your recorder.
Mr. Kern, do we have share capabilities? All right. First, we'll be investigating
Members of the media, our first witness and our fifth witness, Sergeant McKessie, and then there's a person by the name of Mr. Henry. If you could not film the two of them, just those two, McKessie and Radcliffe. So McKessie's our first witness, okay? All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. All jurors present, sir?
Yes, sir. All present, count for.
Okay, all right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the jury.
Good morning.
All right, that's what I like to hear. A fully caffeinated, sugared up jury. Okay, all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, we're going to go ahead and continue with the presentation of the state's case. Ms. Hilton or Mr. Brown, call your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. At this time, Your Honor, the state calls Investigator Stephen McKessie to the stand.
All right, summon Investigator McKessie, please.
All right, Investigator McKessie, good morning, sir. If you would please approach the witness stand. Once you get there, if you'd be so kind to turn and face Sergeant Ingram and be sworn as a witness, please, before you sit down.
Yes, sir.
Raise your right hand. You swear affirm testimony you give the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat. State and spell your first and last name for the court, please.
Investigator Stephen McKessie.
Good morning.
Spell it.
Last name, first name spells S-T-E-P-H-E-N. Last name is M-C-K-E-S-E-Y.
Good morning, Investigator McKessie.
Good morning.
Are you employed?
Yes, I am.
And where do you work?
Atlanta Police Department,
And how long have you worked there?
22 years.
And when did you start?
May 8th of 2001.
And what was your role when you first got started with AP?
Started as a recruit, and then I went to, when I finished completing my mandate school, I went to Zone 1 Patrol.
Okay, and to be sure, APD stands for Atlanta Police Department as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Have you held any other positions other than investigator since being with NPD?
Yes, sir. As an officer, I was on audit theft task force. In 2008, I was promoted to investigator. I did general investigations. I went to narcotics as an investigator, ATF task force. Now I'm on the future unit by way of the U.S. Marshal Task Force.
Okay. And are you post-certified?
Yes, I am.
Were you post-certified on September 5th, 2022?
Yes, I was.
2020.
Yes, I was.
Right. Do you remember working an extra job on Saturday, September 5th, 2020?
Yes.
And what kind of extra job was that?
So I was working in Zone 1 at the Zaxby's. It's a restaurant.
Okay. And how were you dressed for that job?
Per SOP, I was dressed in full Class A uniform.
Okay. And around what time did you finish your shift?
About 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Okay. And what's the address of the extra job?
It's 946 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive.
And where, if anywhere, did you go after you finished your shift?
I was headed southbound on 75, realized I needed some gas, so I got off on Cleveland Avenue and went to the Chevron on Cleveland Avenue.
Do you know the address of that shift?
221 Cleveland Avenue,
And what county is that Chevron located?
Fulton County.
And what type of vehicle were you traveling in?
I was in my city unmarked vehicle, which is a gray F-150, Ford F-150.
Okay. And are you familiar generally with the area of 221 Cleveland Avenue?
Yes, sir.
And how are you familiar with that area?
Working audit theft task force, we would be assigned to that area to look for stolen vehicles. When I was doing narcotics undercover work, I numerous of times would purchase narcotics from that area. Also being on fugitive, we would get files with people that is wanted from that area, and I have to go around there and try to locate them.
Okay. And can you tell the jury what you know generally about the 221 Cleveland Avenue area?
Basically, it's a known drug area with a lot of violence.
Hold on, stop.
Oh, sorry.
What's your objection, sir?
Okay.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
You are a man, please, sir?
Yes.
Would you like us to approach?
Yeah, you can approach. Billy, hold on. I'm going to overrule my objection, Mr. Steele. I'm going to overrule my ruling, okay? I'm going to overrule the objection, okay?
So I'll restate the question. What do you know generally about the 221 Cleveland Avenue area?
It's a known drug area. There's a lot of different type of crimes that occur in that particular gas station address. It's also known for being a gang area as well.
Okay. And I am now going to show, with this court's permission, this witness exhibits 157N through 163N, which is still shots. With permission to approach, I will do so, Your Honor.
You said that you're going to show 163 and or what through what?
157N, 158N, 159N, 160N, 161N, 162N, and 163N, Your Honor.
All right, you may approach, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. McKessie, after you've had a chance to look at what I presented you, I'll get back up with you, please.
sir.
Okay. What have I just had here?
These are still shots of 221 Cleveland Avenue.
And how do you know what those are?
This is the night of the incident that we're discussing today.
Okay. And have those still images, do they do those still images accurately?
I'm sorry, may I have an opportunity to look at those photos?
Had you been provided them earlier?
I've not seen these. I've not seen these.
All right,
I just want to get to the next inquiry.
okay, all right.
Sure.
Do you want to see them?
Sure, just a moment.
This is on Greer. Yes.
And Your Honor, to be clear for the record, these are still images from the body cam that were provided in discovery for the defense counsel.
Okay.
Okay, and resuming the question, Investigator McKesson, do these still images from the body cam accurately depict the events of September 5th, 2020, as you recall them?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves to admit states exhibits 157N through 163N into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, states 157N through 163N are admitted and may be published as you see fit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Investigator McKessie, either with the exhibits that have been admitted into evidence that are in front of you or looking at the screen, can you tell the jury what we're looking at on this particular exhibit, 157N?
Right here, this is my truck. I was at the gas pump trying to get some gas. Of course, this is the Chevron in the middle. You have the fish and wing spot. Over here is a income tax place. And then over here is a corner that leads you to the back of the building. I'll explain why I said that later.
Okay. I do want to go back a few steps really quickly and further expound upon something you said earlier. Earlier you talked about 221 Cleveland Avenue being a gated area. What do you mean by that?
It has a reputation where there's a lot of gang activities going on where they sell drugs in that area. They seem like they hang out there to sell some of their narcotics.
Basis. Say. Overruled. Overruled. Okay, all right.
About how far is the 221 Cleveland Avenue area away from 151 Cleveland Avenue?
Less than a mile.
Turning back to this picture, I would like to ask you, well, before we go into the picture a little further, could you tell the court what you remember about working that day of September 5th, 2020?
Well, I was off duty. Like I said, I was just getting some gas. That evening was kind of busy. There was a lot going on in that evening in the Atlanta area in general. Before I came here, I was involved in an incident over by my extra job.
Is that Mr. Steele?
Yeah, which one? Is that Mr. Steele? Yeah, okay, all right. What's your response?
Your Honor, we consider this relevant to the portion of his testimony.
Okay. Overruled.
So you may continue.
So I was involved in another incident in another area where there were shots fired in that particular area, which is near my exit job. Because of that reason, I had to keep my uniform on. Normally I would take it off, but I kept my uniform on at that time. I also had to have a different kind of firearm with me to protect myself in that incident. When I left that area, I came over to, I was going 75 southbound, where I noticed I needed some gas, so I stopped at this particular gas station, which is closer to the freeway. I pulled up to a pump, noticed that the pump was broken. Noticed there was a lot of people. When I first pulled in, there was a lot of people in the area. Then I went over to the pump closer to the restaurant, where I noticed there was candles, like they had a candlelight vigil in that area. And then I also noticed a whole bunch of people just congregating. One particular vehicle struck my attention at the time, which was a red sedan. Inside the red sedan, there was a lot of lighting in the area, but inside the red sedan, I saw a guy sitting in the passenger seat with a rifle. The rifle was sitting, it seemed like he was holding a rifle. You could see the butt stock of the rifle. Even at one time, he had lifted the rifle up, and you could see the actual barrel of the rifle. So I was able to tell it was some kind of AK-47 style rifle. I then noticed a lot of commotion going on. All of a sudden, a white sedan pulls up. The sedan parks next to the red sedan. At that point, I still kept my eyes on the person in a red sedan because of the rifle aspect of it. All of a sudden, this older gentleman comes out of the store. He started cussing, using profanity, talking about he's gonna kill somebody.
So let's unpack some of what you discussed just now. So with the exhibit that is on the screen, can you point to the red sedan that you said that you saw the individual with the rifle style firearm located?
So it's parked over by the fish and wing spot back then, and it has its lights on.
And I will just allow you to know that that screen is a smart screen, and I believe if you touch it, it will annotate where you're talking about.
Okay, it's actually right here.
Yes. Okay, so that car that is close to that white sedan by that fish spot, is that where you were pointing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many people were in that vehicle when you saw them?
It was 2 at the time.
Okay. And at that time, after you observed that, well, earlier you stated that you had a firearm.
Yes, sir.
What type of firearm did you have?
I had my handgun that I normally carry, and also I had a AR-15 rifle, which is also city issued.
When you went to that location, were you working in an undercover capacity?
No, I wasn't.
Were you looking for anyone particularly?
No, I wasn't.
Were you in any way, shape, or form there for anything other than gas?
No, sir.
You indicated earlier that there was an older gentleman. Do you recall making that statement?
Yes, sir.
Earlier you stated that he was saying something. Can you describe what those things that you heard?
Yes, sir. He was ranting, he said, "I'm gonna kill this motherfucker." That's pretty much what I heard. He continued just to rant, but one that stuck out, he said, "I'm gonna kill this motherfucker."
What did the other people around in that environment appear to be doing?
They were just looking at him. Again, at the time, they were just looking at him, I guess, just watching him rant.
Okay. Just briefly, why did you move your vehicle from the first pump that you parked at?
The pump wasn't working.
Okay. And after moving your vehicle from the first pump, how did you position your vehicle?
Facing the actual store.
Based on this picture that is in evidence, was your vehicle facing the red Honda that you're looking at?
Directly in front of Red Honda, yes, sir.
All right. And so with this, from this vantage point, it was very easy for you to see into that vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And after you observed the man ranting that you described, what else, if anything, did you observe?
That's when I saw the white Malibu pull up and back in.
And based on this picture that is in evidence already, can you point to the jury where that vehicle, the white Malibu that you were describing, is located?
Yes, sir. The vehicle's backed in front of the fish and wing place.
Okay. Is that to the left of this screen?
On the left, correct.
And who was in that vehicle that backed in when you described?
It was a driver. It was a passenger and a backseat passenger who later I was able to identify as Quintavious Greer.
Okay. And when we get to that, can you describe in total how many people were in that vehicle? For clarity?
3.
Okay. And I'm going to reclaim these and allow you to use that screen. Just 3. Do the next exhibit. And right in front of us is Exhibit 158N. Can you describe for the jury what that is that we're looking at in this particular vantage point?
This is the same area where the white vehicle was backed in front of the restaurant, the fish and wing restaurant.
Okay. Do you see a gray truck in this exhibit?
Yes, that's my gray truck.
And is that white sedan that you were speaking about in front of this fish and wing spot the one that you paid attention to particularly that night?
I started paying attention to, yes, sir.
Okay. Can you describe, based on your vantage point, what if anything you observed the occupants of that vehicle of the white sedan that you doing?
So at the time, I guess the older male was, going through his ranting, and all of a sudden I see the driver get out of the vehicle and hand the old male a firearm. At that point, I saw Mr. Greer exit out the backseat passenger side with a firearm in his hand.
Did you observe these individuals get out of the vehicle only one time?
No, sir.
Okay. How many times did they get out of the vehicle?
The driver got out the vehicle twice, and Mr. Greer got out the vehicle twice.
Okay. So let's go through the first exiting from the white sedan. When they exited the white sedan the first time, can you describe for the jury what you observed?
So the first time, the driver gets out the vehicle, approached the older male, and hands him a firearm. Mr. Greer exited out his vehicle, out the same vehicle in the backseat passenger side, and had a gun in his hand.
Okay. And did anything occur after that?
At that point, Mr. Greer puts the firearm in his waistband and sits back down in the vehicle. The driver walks back towards the vehicle, also sits down in the vehicle. At that point, the old man rushes towards the front of the door as if he was going inside of the Chevron. He walks inside and comes right back outside. He began still, cussing. It seemed like he was under influence. He also began waving the handgun in the air, saying he's going to shoot all these motherfuckers. At that point, the driver then goes back out the vehicle, grabs the gun from the old man, and goes back to the vehicle. And that's when I see Mr. Greer get out the vehicle and start walking towards the income tax place.
All right. Were you able to get, let me ask you this. Was there anything about that, what you observed that drew your attention to that man running with the gun?
It's just a man running with the gun, and he was, there were, besides the man running with the gun, but also, like I said, I was able to be looking at it and keep my eyes on it. I was able to describe people in general what they were doing.
Were you concerned for the overall safety of people in that environment based on what you observed?
Yes, sir.
Is that what prompted you to come out of off-duty mode and become more active as
I stand this lady.
I was right there.
Okay.
What, if anything, did you observe caused you to do at that point?
So basically, due to there's innocent people in the area, I felt that I needed to act on it so nobody would get hurt. I got on my city issue radio, asked for backup. I then waited, kept observation on the individuals to make sure they didn't act the way I thought they was going to act, which at that point, when backup showed up, which made me approach the situation more further, investigate the situation more further.
Okay. And when you, excuse me, when you began to use your radio, what, if anything, did you call out?
I gave a description of the individuals that all had the firearm. I also gave a brief synopsis of what happened at that moment, why I was acting the way I was acting. Again, like I said, I stayed in a position so I could keep eyes on everybody until backup showed up.
In your opinion, was there a large group of people outside?
Yeah, there was a lot of people in that area.
All right, looking at Exhibit 159N, which is been admitted, can you tell the jury what you see here?
I see the same area, 221 Cleveland Avenue. This is directly in front of the the Chevron, the food mart of the Chevron. To the right is the income tax place. At this point, there was, back at the end, there was a whole bunch of people just hanging out. You could tell they weren't trying to get gas. They were just hanging out.
And here, what do you see?
This is 221 Cleveland Avenue. On this side of the picture of the 221 Cleveland is the income tax business. These are people that were all congregating on that side of the income tax place. Again, they were just hanging out for whatever reason.
Okay. I want to turn back to some of the things you said earlier for clarification. Earlier you stated that you saw Mr. Greer with a firearm. Can you describe what kind of firearm you saw?
Yes, it was a handgun.
Okay. And do you recall the color?
Black.
And after the occupants of the white Malibu returned to the vehicle, did they get back in?
Yeah, for a second.
Okay.
And then that's when they exit back out and walk towards the income tax place.
And did all of the occupants that returned exit their vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And at which point they exited the vehicle, did they have those firearms still with them?
Yes, they did.
Were you able to see them?
Yes.
Okay. Specifically with Mr. Greer, were you able to see his?
Yes, I did.
Where did he have it?
In his waistband.
Okay. When you say in his waistband, are you talking about in the front or back?
In the front.
Okay. And earlier you provided, you stated that you provided a description of those individuals, those three individuals in that white Malibu. Can you provide that, what you relayed to the jury?
Yes. So the driver was wearing all black. He seemed like he had some kind of rhinestones on his jacket. The passenger, backseat passenger, was wearing a stonewashed jean jacket with a red cap, and the passenger was wearing a red hoodie sweater.
Okay. And Mr. Greer, what was he wearing?
A jean jacket, stonewashed style jean jacket with a red hat or cap.
Okay. And did you ever get a description of the older man?
Yes, he had on a white T-shirt that had blood on his shirt.
And where was the blood located?
In front of, like, this abdomen area.
Did it appear like he had recently been injured?
Yes, sir.
And after you observed the older male with the firearm waving it in the air, what did he do with that firearm?
He gave it to the driver who was wearing the black.
The driver of what vehicle?
Of the white vehicle.
Okay. And can you describe for the jury what that firearm deployed?
That was a black firearm as well, a black handgun.
Okay. Brief indulgence, Your Honor.
All right, sir.
The second time that these three occupants of the white Malibu exited, can you describe for the jury what you observed them to do?
So the backseat passenger and the driver exit out the white vehicle. The passenger stayed in the vehicle at that moment. Then they walked towards the income tax place, which is on the other side of the plaza of 221 Cleveland. And I think, again, I was able to see the handgun still on all of them, on both of them.
Okay, and specifically for clarity, can you describe the scene of those in the white Malibu?
So you had the driver wearing all black with the rhinestones, the front passenger wearing the sweatshirt hoodie, backseat passenger wearing a jean jacket, stonewash style jean jacket with a red cap.
Was it the individual wearing the stonewash jacket that walked out the second time to the west end of that plaza?
Yes, sir.
And earlier you stated that you radioed. Did you ever call for assistance?
Yes, I did.
And can you acknowledge or can you tell the jury did additional units come?
Yes, they did.
And when I say units, what am I referencing?
The Zone 3 patrol units or sedition units.
Okay. And when the Zone 3 patrol units arrived, what, if anything, occurred at that time?
When they told me they arrived on the radio, I exit out my vehicle. I saw the passenger exit out the vehicle, who was still sitting in the vehicle. I addressed him to show me his hands. When I realized I didn't see anything on his possession, I went towards where I saw the two occupants, the driver and the backseat passenger, walk to. I then told the officers to link up with me, gave them a description of who I was looking for, and we approached that particular person in general. The driver decided to continue, when he noticed that police was arriving, he decided to continue to walk away from the plaza and run away from the area.
Okay, and was there anyone detained as a result of additional units showing up?
Yes, so once I gave them the description of the backseat passenger who also had a black firearm, myself and the patrol officers made the approach. I gave verbal commands to the subject, told him to get on the ground, show me his hands. He complied, laid on the ground. That's when Officer Thomas went and put detained. I told him to go ahead and detain him, and also I told him to look for the handgun that I saw him having.
Why was the backseat passenger detained?
Because he was one of the ones that had the handgun walking towards the crowd of people, and I wanted to make sure that, I wanted to detain him based on what I saw. To further investigation of the scenario.
Do you do that for safety?
For safety reasons, correct.
And after the backseat passenger, well, let me back up. Whatever happened with the front seat passenger of the white Malibu?
The front seat passenger, he walked away, but then he ended up coming towards where we were to try to, I guess, talk to us about, why we have Mr. Greer in handcuffs.
Was whatever happened with the front, with the driver of the white Malibu?
He ran away from the area.
Was he ever located?
No, sir.
After the backseat passenger was detained, was he searched?
Yes, he was.
Why was he searched?
To locate the firearm for safety reasons.
Okay, and after that firearm was located, where was it found in this person?
In his waistband, in the front part of the waistband.
And was that was the firearm that was located on this person the same that you saw him walking with initially?
Yes, sir.
Who was the officer that actually recovered the firearm?
Officer Thomas.
And was there ever a time that how did you come to learn the identity of Mr. Greer?
After we received the information, I wrote the information down. I then did my own investigation by running his information and pulling his driver's license information.
Okay. And after he was detained, did you investigate the firearm that was in his possession?
Mr. Officer Thomas ran the information. I did run the information as well. Yes, I did, sir.
Okay. And just a brief indulgence, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
After you looked at the driver's license information up, was there a picture that came up?
Yes.
And did that picture match the person that you had observed on the night of September 5th, 2020, in the back of the white Malibu?
Yes, sir.
When the gun was ran through the system, what if anything came up?
The firearm came up, reported stolen.
Where was it reported stolen?
That part I can't remember, sir.
Would you like to? Is there anything that will refresh your recollection?
Report.
Thank you. Now marking for identification purposes.
Oh, I have it right here. Sorry, my notes.
You cannot read it. Just 1 second. Now,
Hold on. You have an objection? I'm sorry?
I believe the state is asking for hearsay.
I think, I'm gonna overrule your objection. I think he's trying to refresh recollection this time, okay?
May I approach?
You may.
And it has been marked as State's Exhibit 200R.
What is the question?
Madam Court, can you restate the last question? Specificity.
Can take a look at the document.
Where was it reported stolen? That part I can't remember, sir. Would you like?
Yes, Your Honor. That's the question I believe is asking for hearsay. You understand that you recollection.
Can you turn your microphone on?
Hearsay.
I'm sorry, can you turn your microphone on? You know?
Your Honor, we understand that the witness is refreshing his recollection with the report, but what he's refreshing his recollection about is hearsay. And that's our objection.
Can you respond, Mr. Brown?
The state's position is that he also investigated on his own about the firearm, so he's...
All right. At this point in time, I'm gonna overrule your objection, sir. I'm overruling your objection.
I just want to see the document, sure.
Okay, all right.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
And also, may I also add for the record, Your Honor, a confrontation clause as well.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Still overruled. Thank you.
Now approaching the witness with State's Exhibit 200R.
Yes.
And look at the report and upon having your memory refreshed, you can look at it.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Where was it?
Clayton County, October 30th, 2017.
Okay. I want to ask you, follow back with a question as it relates to the area where you were located that evening. Is that area a known gang? Is within that area a known gang? Is there a gang that is known frequently within that area?
Objection, foundation.
I sustain the objection. You need to lay some more foundation, sir.
Earlier you testified about your knowledge of the 221 Cleveland Avenue area, correct?
Yes, sir.
And during that time, you indicated that you are aware of that area, aware of that happenings in that area.
Yes, sir.
Is it true that? Is it fair to say that you're based on your testimony that is not?
Staying as the form of the question.
What do you know to be the activity around if any, the activity around the 221 Cleveland Avenue area?
A lot of drug activity. It's a high crime area. We consider it a high crime area in Atlanta. There's also a lot of gang involvement in that area as well.
Speaking to that gang involvement that you just mentioned, is there a known gang that is in or about that area of 221 Cleveland area?
Foundations.
Overruled.
You may ask this question.
Yes, there's a known gang called YSL.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross. Matthew Sr., go right ahead, sir.
Investigator McKessie. Good morning, sir.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. My name is Carrington Matthews, and I represent Mr. Marquavius Huey. Can you look around the courtroom and tell me if you see Quantavious Greer in this courtroom?
He was sitting over there, but I don't know where he's sitting at now.
He was sitting in over here today?
Looked like him that was sitting over there.
Can you point him out?
I don't see anybody now. I don't see him now.
You believe you saw Mr. Greer this morning?
Yes, sir.
Where did you believe you saw him sitting?
Next to the light-skinned dude.
The light-skinned dude? Okay. What was he wearing?
A suit.
What color was the suit?
A dark colored suit.
Did he have on a tie?
Yes, sir.
What color was the tie?
I'm not familiar with the color of the tie.
When did you see him in the courtroom?
They look alike. If that wasn't him, I'd have to see that person again, but let's see. Oh, no, that's not him. It looks like they favor.
Okay. You're talking about Attorney Gardner?
Yeah, they favor. They look like they'd be brothers.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I understand the events of May 8th, 2020. Can you pull up Exhibit 1, or piece of evidence 157N? So we're looking at the food mart, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's where all of these events took place that you just testified to, the Chevron?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you see that picture on the screen there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's the gas station that you just testified is a known gang area and things of that nature, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, looking at that building, do you see that that's a white painted building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Looking at that building very closely, do you see any YSL gang graffiti on that building?
No, sir.
You're looking at the parking lot, the surface of the parking lot. Do you see any tagging or gang graffiti on any of the parking area?
No, sir.
On the side of the building, we saw some photos on the side of the buildings. Did you see any gang YSL graffiti on that building?
You saw on the side of the building?
Yes.
I can't see the side of the building.
There were some photos in here. Did you recall maybe taking any photographs or anything of that nature?
No, sir.
Concerning any gang graffiti on this particular gas station building?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, so you got off from a private work detail at a Zaxby's in another part of the city, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you needed gas, and you got off on the expressway, and you went over to this particular gas station, correct?
Yes, sir.
You saw You moved from one pump to another pump, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you saw what you described as a red vehicle with an individual seated inside of that vehicle, right?
Yes, sir.
You said you saw a rifle, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I think you testified that from the vantage point that you were able to determine that that rifle was an AK-47.
Style rifle.
Style, okay. Was that rifle ever recovered?
No, sir.
Okay. Why wasn't it recovered?
They didn't want to invade their rights.
Okay, you didn't want to infringe upon their rights, so they had a right to have that particular weapon in their possession?
I mean, yes, sir.
Okay, so you didn't make any arrest of the person with the rifle, correct?
Correct.
You didn't document that that person with the rifle was a part of a gang, correct?
Correct.
You didn't document that that person with the rifle used that rifle on the premises of the Chevron, correct?
Correct.
No one inside the Chevron called law enforcement and said, hey, there's a guy with a rifle in a red vehicle, and I would ask that you all remove him from our premises, correct?
Correct.
You had not gotten any calls from any disturbances that had occurred at the Chevron this particular evening, correct?
No, sir.
Even this person that you said you heard ranting, if you would, with a gun in his hand, no manager inside the food mart, no employee, no citizen or anyone called 911 saying that this person was creating a disturbance, correct?
Well, my radio was turned off because I was off. So they did call 911. That's something we have to contact communications to get that information.
And any follow-up that you did in this case, you did not document that any 911 calls had ever been made concerning any disturbances at this particular food mart, correct?
I didn't look at that particular part of the investigation up. Again, if you contact communications, you can see there was some kind of call for service at that time.
But that's something that you did not do, correct?
No, I didn't do that.
Okay. You said that there were a large number of people out there that particular evening, but that's because there's a police presence and you guys were doing an investigation and people were pretty much just looking around, right?
When I first got there was no police there. There was just a whole lot of people congregating in the area, not getting gas. My choice of pumps was limited because of that. So it was just weird that night.
Okay. And no one was cited for loitering, correct?
Again, you have to contact communication to get that information.
You didn't cite anyone for loitering, correct?
No, sir.
Now, you indicated that the people in the white vehicle, the driver had on all black, correct?
Yes, sir.
You did not see any type of gang paraphernalia on the person in the all black, correct?
Correct.
The person that you described with the red hoodie, you didn't document in your report that the person who had a red hoodie on had a red hoodie on that was associated with any type of gang activity, correct?
Right.
It was just a red hoodie, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this older male that you said had blood on his T-shirt, there's nothing about your investigation that determined that this person that had blood on their T-shirt had been injured with respect to any type of criminal activity, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. You don't know why the person had blood on their shirt, correct?
Correct.
Could have been from working, right?
Not that fresh of a blood.
Could have been from a fall,
Yeah,
correct?
it could have been from a fall, yes, sir.
And the person that you said had this firearm, this older gentleman, you stated that he was under the influence, right?
Yes, sir.
Had been drinking. Was pretty much probably a drunk with a gun, right?
Seemed like it, yes, sir.
And the person who was in this vehicle who retrieved the weapon from the older gentleman was actually providing safety to that property by removing the gun from a drunk, correct?
Well, he gave the gun to the drunk first.
Okay. He got it back.
So no, he wasn't providing safety.
Okay, he got it back though, right?
He ended up getting it back.
Okay. And there was no issue with that gun. Nobody fired any weapon, right?
Thank God.
But it didn't happen though, right?
Correct.
Okay. No one used the weapon to do a robbery or anything of that nature, correct?
He used the weapon for act assault, brandishing a firearm to try to shoot somebody, so there was a crime
Someone
involved.
tried to get shot that night?
The way he was ranting, saying he wanted to kill somebody and a specific person, he had the firearm in his possession to go do it, but he didn't do it.
Did anyone come forward, Investigator McKesson, and say, hey, this old guy with a gun pointed at me and I was in fear of my safety? Did anyone come to you and say that?
No, sir.
Okay. Did anyone come to any other officer that you're aware of and say that?
Not that aware of.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to order up the camera surveillance from this food mart that particular evening?
No, sir.
As part of an investigation to determine whether or not there had been an aggravated assault or anything of that nature, it would have been good common police work to retrieve the cameras from the food mart, right?
Well, my observation is first. So I was able to see the aggravated assault in my observation.
You saw an aggravated assault?
Yeah. When you have a gun in your hand and you're saying you're going to kill somebody, whoever that victim was is the person that he was committing the act of assault to.
Did you reference in your report anywhere within the four corners of the number of pages that you created that particular evening that there was an aggravated assault that had been committed against anyone?
I described what the aggravated assault was.
Did you describe in your report that an aggravated assault had been committed?
I gave the description of the action of the aggravated assault in my report, but I didn't say specifically it was aggravated assault.
That's because an aggravated assault actually requires a victim, correct?
It does.
And you didn't reference in your report that there was any victim of an aggravated assault, correct?
There was a description that I described as an aggravated assault, which caused me to act the way I acted, so I need to prevent the aggravated assault.
Okay,
so I think I prevented it.
Let me make sure I'm clear. So you're saying you referenced an attempt crime in your report as opposed to a completed crime? I just want to make sure I'm understanding it.
Yes, sir.
So that the jury's clear and I'm clear, you never saw an aggravated assault occur on the date of this incident at the Chevron, correct?
There's different type of aggravated assault, sir.
I'm just going to ask you to answer the question and then you can explain. All right? So if you can give me a yes or no to the question, you're free to explain in any way that you choose. I'm going to re-ask the question. On the night of this incident, at this gas station, did you see a completed aggravated assault occur?
Objection, ask and answer.
Sustained.
Now, you didn't reference a male as being a victim of an ag assault, correct?
Objection, ask and answer.
Sustained.
I specifically asked you with respect to a gender.
Sustained.
Okay. All right. Now, Investigator McKessie, you indicated that you detained Quintavious Greer, correct?
Yes, sir.
You stated that this person had a stonewash jacket and a red cap. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You did not reference that Mr. Greer was associated with any gang in your report, correct?
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, Investigator McKessie, you did not document in your report that you were going to make any type of referral to the gang unit within the APD, correct?
Correct.
In fact, there was nothing about this particular incident that caused you to reference in any way gang activity, correct? In your report.
You really want me to answer that question?
Well, I'm asking you, in the report that you prepared, I'm asking you, did you reference any gang activity
No, sir.
in your report?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, you indicated that you detained Mr. Greer because you said it was for safety, but Mr. Greer, he never waved a gun at anyone, did he?
He had the gun in his hand.
Right, but he never waved it at anyone, right?
You don't have to wave a gun to have a gun in to do that.
And no one walked away from him as though they were afraid because he had a gun in his hand, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. And you detained him because he had a gun in his hand, and as a result of that, he complied, right?
Yes, sir.
He didn't run away from you.
No, sir.
He didn't give you a false name.
No, sir.
He didn't give you a false date of birth.
No, sir.
You said lay down on the ground. He laid down.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Now, you stated that you retrieved this handgun from his waistband?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the front seat passenger that was in the same vehicle as Mr. Greer didn't try to run, correct?
No, sir.
That person came actually to you and was basically trying to understand what was happening, right?
Yes, sir.
That person didn't give you a false name, right?
I didn't ask for his name.
So you didn't ask. So this was a scenario where you didn't even ask for his identity, correct?
No, sir.
And that wasn't important for you to establish anything about that particular passenger, because had there been any issue in your mind as to that passenger, you certainly would have asked him for his name, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even though he was with Mr. Greer, correct?
Correct.
Now, while you were there at this particular location, the food mart, you did not see any drug sales take place, did you?
I saw some drugs, but not no drug sales.
Okay. You didn't see any stolen vehicles happen on the premises that particular evening, correct?
I didn't run any tags, so.
Okay. And just 1 second, indulgence, Your Honor.
All right, sir.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anybody else cross? Redirect, madam. Or sir, I should say. Redirect. Oh, hold on. Mr. Steele rose.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
This investigator, any of the persons that you saw on September 5 of 2020, any of them here in this courtroom that you recall?
No, sir.
Okay. And you know I represent Mr. Williams, fair to say?
Sir?
You know I represent Mr. Jeffrey Williams, right?
Okay.
And he wasn't at the scene, was he?
No, sir.
When you mentioned and you described the area, in Cleveland Avenue area, in that area, how long have you been familiar with this area?
Since 2005.
And is that from doing business in the area, like stopping for gas, as well as patrolling the area?
Yes, all the above.
Okay. And is it correct to say that, tragically, the area is poverty-stricken?
Objection.
I'm not about to answer that.
Objection. Relevant.
I'll rule the objection.
I'm not going to answer that. That's disrespecting that community.
Okay, well, how would you describe the income level in that community?
All right, little foundation, Mr. Steele, if you want to ask him that.
Do you have a belief on the level of income in that area?
Objection. Relevance.
I'm going to sustain the question as to form. It's still, it still kind of misses the mark, Mr. Steele.
Do you believe that that area has a lot of crime?
Yes, sir.
And does that area have any type of flourishing houses? You know, the housing market there? Is there a lot of homeless there?
Sir, again, I'm not going to disrespect that community.
I'll sustain this to form. You can break that down, Mr. Steele.
Let me ask you this. Are you familiar with the McDonald's at 150 Cleveland Avenue?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar that that McDonald's is today out of business?
Yes, sir.
And it's still the structure there, though. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
And if I showed you a photographs from when the McDonald's was there, do you think you could recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir.
Let me show you what I'll mark as number 3.
I think this is yours first.
Okay.
So if you want to put
DW1?
Yeah.
Yes.
At this time, state's going to object to basis off of relevance. This is not relevant to the reason for which investigator request is here.
What's
on
relevant?
cross-examination, the rules are not bound by what the state asks him on direct.
No, it's just, well, toward the scope rule, still gotta be relevant, though.
It'll be relevant.
I'll give you a little bit of latitude. Full rule for now, sir.
May I approach you?
Yes.
I'm going to approach you, Mr. If I may. Tell me if you recognize what I've marked as Mr. Williams number 1.
Yes, that's Old Hayville and Cleveland Avenue intersection. It's the McDonald's that's at the intersection.
Okay. And is that a fair and accurate depiction of when the McDonald's was in business?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you know that address to be 150 Cleveland Avenue?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that often. The numbers, I just knew that's the McDonald's on Cleveland Avenue.
How close is that area to the Food Mart?
Less than a block.
All right. Now, do you remember whether that McDonald's in 2014, January 2015, had video surveillance?
Yes.
Okay.
I object, Your Honor. This is not relevant whatsoever.
No, I'll rule that, Mr. Brown.
And did it have video surveillance?
I believe so, yes,
Talking
sir.
about what had video surveillance, sir?
The McDonald's, sir, 2014 going into January 2015.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it routine, typical, trained that if you get information about, let's say, something involving the parking lot of the McDonald's in Mr. Williams number 1, and it had to be corroborated or looked into whether people were there on a certain day and time, do law enforcement have the ability to go and either request or subpoena that video surveillance from the McDonald's?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay. Were you involved in any way with confirming or not confirming statements made to law enforcement, specifically Detective Thorpe, on January 11th of 2015 about people at that McDonald's?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm going to ask for a continued objection to this line of inquiry.
I'll note it for you, sir. It will be continuing objection.
But if information came out to Detective Thorpe and others that on January 11th, 2015, that on January 10th, 2015, there were people in that McDonald's, video surveillance could have been gathered if law enforcement wanted to.
Objection. This is fact-finding evidence, Your Honor.
I'm not sustaining it. We haven't really heard anything.
Tell ladies and gentlemen, jury, how easy is it to get video surveillance?
It's hard sometimes, depending on the business.
How about subpoena power?
It's still kind of complicated because you have to give it to maybe to the corporate office.
Tell the jury.
It's kind of complicated in some way because you have to give the subpoena to the corporate office and then they have to send you the videos depending on the business. This one could have been easier. It could have been hard.
How about a search warrant? How about getting a search warrant?
I mean, again, it's just time consuming. I mean, all we have to do is fill out the proper calls and go get the information, get the subpoena, the search warrant signed.
And you as a law enforcement officer tried to do that. That's commonplace, right?
This place?
Getting surveillance, if it's important.
If it's important towards my case, yes, sir.
It's just a checklist, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't think I have any other questions. Your Honor, I move for the admission of Mr. Williams, number 1, and I'd like to display it to the jurors. I'm sorry?
Any objection to DW1?
No, Your Honor.
Are DW1s admitted and may be published?
I sent the link.
Mr. Steele, do you want to publish it yourself, or?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not going to do it for you, but because I'm sitting up here, but you can certainly do it if you'd like, okay? Because you asked permission to publish, so I'm
He's
telling you,
getting
yes,
the
you
link,
can.
but I could do it.
Say it.
Shaq is getting the link. Mr. Kokomo's getting the link. if not, Your Honor, I could just pass it around to the jurors.
He's logged in.
I think he's in right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and investigator, just orient the jurors if you don't mind. And Mr. Kokomo's using the arrow. Just show the jurors where the McDonald's is located, the actual McDonald's, not just a sign.
The McDonald's is located right here at the corner of
And Mr.
Cleveland Avenue, Old Hayville.
Say, I apologize, stepped on your words. Cleveland Avenue and what?
And Old Hayville.
Okay, and Mr. Kokomo's circling the McDonald's. Is that fair to say that that's the area? No, the actual structure?
Where he circled it at, sir. I don't see it.
See that area that he circled?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And then across from it, do you recognize to the left that other structure? Is that a laundromat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was that laundromat there also in year 2013, 14, 15? If you remember.
I don't know if the business was actually the same business, but I know it was there.
The structure?
The structure was there, yes.
Okay. And then where, in relation to this McDonald's, would the location that you were talking about with the jurors be? Would it be to the left on Mr. Williams, number one, or to the right?
You mean where I saw Mr. Greer?
Yes, yes.
To the right.
Okay.
If we're facing McDonald's, it'd be to the right.
Okay, on our picture.
Going westbound.
Okay. And across the street from the McDonald's, you can see, is that another gas station?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember which business that is? Which gas station?
It's a BP gas station.
And does that area also have video surveillance?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, that's okay. The laundromat, does that have video surveillance?
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. I don't have any other questions. Thank you so much, Your Honor. Thank you, investigator.
Thank you.
Okay, any other examination by any counsel for the defense? All right, any redirect?
Yes, just
Can we-
review.
All right, you still need to use this?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it up. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about some of the things that just came out. As to Mr. Greer, can you provide his date of birth?
I'll have to reference it.
Sure, you may reference it and look back up when you finish.
Date of birth is January 9th, 1989.
And let's go back to this particular exhibit that is on the screen. Excuse me.
EW1, sir?
DW1. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
all right.
What is this address of? Do you know the address of that McDonald's?
Not off of memory, no.
Is that McDonald's within the same vicinity of the gas station that you responded to on September the 5th, 2020?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was that McDonald's relevant to the incident for which you responded to on September 5th, 2020?
No, sir.
Okay. How far is that McDonald's from 151 Cleveland? How far is that McDonald's from 221 Cleveland Avenue?
Less than a block.
Okay. Were you focused on any surveillance footage from a McDonald's that did not exist at that time on September 5th, 2022?
No, sir.
Okay. Was it relevant at all for what you were handling on that day?
No, sir.
Was a Detective Thorpe involved in any way on your on September 5th, 2020?
No, sir.
Your Honor, we still need that picture. We weren't done with that. It's in DW.
Oh, do you want to back up again?
Yes, yes.
All right, Mr. Coco, can you put DW1 up, please, again, sir? Thank you, sir.
Are you familiar with that Exxon gas station? Or that BP gas station?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of what that is now?
Trying to picture, I've seen it recently, like within the last couple of days. I can't remember.
You can talk into the mic, please.
I've seen it within the last couple of days, but I think it's still a gas station. I don't know what kind of name it is. They change up so much.
Okay. But
The structure's still there and nothing changed.
is it fair to say that it is not what it once was?
No.
Okay. Do you know when that McDonald's closed?
No, sir, I can't remember. I know it was recent. I was surprised.
Okay. Just briefly, Your Honor. Prior to September 5th, 2020, did you know Quantavious Greer?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of any, I'll strike that now, court reporter. I want to put back up State's Exhibit number 160N.
All right, sir, if you could take that down. DW1, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Earlier, you on the record, you stated that there were a large amount of people outside. Does this exhibit reflect what you saw on September 5th, 2020?
Yes, sir.
And based on the number of people outside, let's turn back to the older gentleman. You stated that the older gentleman had a firearm and he was waving it in the air, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And based on what you observed at that time, did you have any other concerns at that time?
Can you?
Any other concerns in that area at that time?
There was a.
Yeah, I'll sustain this so vague. You can rephrase, sir.
What was your focus when you observed the man with the firearm waving in the air that appeared to be intoxicated?
I wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to use that firearm recklessly.
Okay. And roughly how many people were outside? Well, no, let's turn back. Defense asked you a lot. Earlier, Mr. Matthews asked you a few questions about the man in the area, the older man. When the older man indicated with the firearm that I am going to shoot these motherfuckers, what then went through your mind?
Say again? Who was that? Ms. Westmoreland, well, you have an objection? Basis?
I do, Your Honor.
I'll sustain this form. You can rephrase.
Is it fair to say that you said objection?
I sustain the question, Mr. Form.
When you heard the older man make that statement, what were you thinking at that point?
That he was going to shoot somebody.
And how much time passed between the time that that firearm was brandished and the time that Zone 3 officers responded to that area?
They responded within 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. And I want to ask you just a few more questions. You said that you saw drugs that evening, correct?
Yes, sir.
What type of drugs did you see?
It was marijuana.
Okay. Did you have to make reference to gang activity based on the facts that you knew at that time?
Objection, self-serving.
I'll sustain it as a form.
Did you make reference to any gang activity?
No, sir.
Why not?
Objection, self-serving.
Now, I'll allow that, Mr. Matthews.
Why not?
Reason being is because during that time, my investigation was dealing with the actor-shooter situation.
Is it your responsibility to take out gang warrants?
No, sir.
Okay. And earlier, Mr. Matthews made a commentary about graffiti and asked you some questions about graffiti and YSL possible posters. How are you aware that YSL is associated with that area that you were in on September 5th, 2010?
Your Honor, ask and answer.
Overruled.
An objection, Your Honor. Attorney Matthews is not making commentary. He asked a question.
Okay, I'll overrule that.
Well, you can go ahead and answer.
Just rephrase your question, okay?
Sure, Your Honor.
All right.
How are you aware that YSL is associated with that area?
Based on my investigations that I've had in the past, my experience in that area,
Your Honor, object. He didn't object, Your Honor. He didn't reference any of this in his report. He didn't make any arrests for anything.
Overruled, sir.
based on my experience, again, I've interaction with different individuals in that area. They were documented as YSL members.
All right, Your Honor, no further questions.
Any recross?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Matthews.
Thank you. Investigator McKesson, to be clear, you didn't reference anything in your report arising from this incident relevant to YSL, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anybody else?
You see the report that the investigator has in front of him, Your Honor?
I mean, hold on. You mean states 200R? Yeah, you can come and look at it, sure.
Investigator, may I approach you?
Yes, sir.
Can I see the report that you're looking at here? Is that what you brought?
That's what I brought, yes, sir.
I just want to ask you a question, and thank you.
That's states 200R, as in record, right?
Romeo.
Romeo, that's right. I apologize.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that included in what you brought up with you when you came to testify? It's by your left hand?
Yes.
Same report there?
Yes, sir.
About 8 lines down in that report.
Which report?
200R as well as what you brought. It's page 2.
Okay.
Does it say, no, it's page 2 is the number. It's on the first page.
Okay.
Doesn't that inform us that the back passenger actually disarmed the drunk man with the gun?
This is not my report, but yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, any further examination, Mr. Brown?
No, Your Honor.
All right. At this point in time, may Investigator McKessie be permanently temporarily excused witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Permanent?
Yes.
Okay. Investigator McKessie, thank you for your patience with us. I'm going to permanently excuse you as a witness. Please don't discuss your testimony to anybody except the attorneys in this case, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the hour is about almost 11:45-ish, and since you haven't taken a break, how about we do this? How about I go ahead and just break right now for lunch, and you all can come back at 1 o'clock. How's that sound? Okay, and then we'll probably work until probably about 3:30-ish or thereabouts, and then we'll recess for the day, okay? All right, remember my admonitions I've given you, and if you should leave your headquarters, leave your notepads in the basket, and we'll see you back at 1 o'clock, and once all 17 of you are here, we'll reconvene, okay? All right, all rise. He's already at the door. And I said, all right, he would say we're already moving toward the door. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our jury has left us. Please be seated. Okay, anything before we go to lunch?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anything from anybody else? Okay, all right, we'll see everybody back at 1 o'clock, and as soon as everybody's back, we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll probably recess today about 3:30. So, I knew it was too good. Mr. Harvey, what is it? Oh, yes, absolutely, sir. Okay, all right. Okay, we're in recess?
There were so many years worth of inside jokes and memories. And because of this horror, half of those experiences are gone because she's gone. We knew each other at our core. And we used to joke that we lived parallel timelines on different coasts. She was my west and I was her east. The loss of Amy affected every part of my life. My emotional safety, my relationships, my ability to communicate effectively, my sense of direction, meaning, and purpose. I experienced a deep level of emotional alienation from the impact after her loss. I had to seek a more intensive care of management of traumatic feelings, debilitating depression and anxiety, traumatic grief from her loss. I needed to try to operate with a high level of management and repressions of my emotions to prevent any impact of my therapeutic practice with my clients. The level of suffering experienced has been exponential. The level of compartmentalization that is needed to operate on a day-to-day basis still compounds how I process her grief. I miss the joy of experiencing each other through many iterations of ourselves and the fact that there were so many more that I wish we could experience. It is very painfully distressing. I lost the person who truly knew me the best, who I shared the deepest parts of myself with. The depth of that connection is irreplaceable. And I now have a level of understanding of complete and utter pain that I do not wish on any other human being in this world. Ultimately, my heart aches for people who loved Amy the most as they suffer her loss continuously. I'm sorry the world has lost an advocate, a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a niece, a partner, a friend, a voice for the voiceless, a great empathetic healer, and for me, my most authentic kindred spirit. Nothing in this or any lifetime would be able to replace the level of gratitude, information, education, expansiveness, and connection that I had within this friendship. It was truly a once-in-a-lifetime connection. The pain and suffering experienced someone I love being victimized and murdered so viciously, being torn down not only in life, but in her murdering. But by her murder, in her death. The emotional traumatization of how, at times, she was portrayed in her life was disparaging to watch. With her loss being so brutally traumatic in and of itself, it is continuously disturbing that it must serve as a reminder to people who have been through abuse and who live in perpetual fear of another person. The choice that was made to take her vibrant life took so many people's ability to heal away. It has made an enduring impact across an entire community. And while the choice that was made was so detrimental, not just to family, friends, and loved ones, but to other human beings who have suffered in pain and now have no opportunity of having the benefit and wellness of all of the things that she had learned and that she was applying to the community and the world around her. I will continue to struggle to contemplate how to grasp the bond that has been severed. The grief surrounding the loss of Amy is something I will spend the rest of my life trying to figure out how to manage. So, in my humble request, I hope the sentence that is handed down is reflective of just that, a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Costa.
Amy Harwick left an indelible imprint on this world. She was a shining star, and she rose above every challenge. She made a fabulous life for herself, and she did this all on her own through perseverance, hard work, her determination, and force of will. Amy was magical. She had a charm that impressed everyone that met her, and she provided warm comfort to her friends, her family, her co-workers, her clients, and even people she just met casually. People like Amy are one in a million. She followed her own path, and she accomplished more in her short life than most people could ever hope to accomplish in theirs. Her absence casts a long shadow over all of us. Yet still she's here with us, consoling us in our grief, advising us to live our lives to the fullest, and cheering on our triumphs that are yet to be ahead. There's some satisfaction that her killer will receive little comforts in his days ahead, but this is still no solace for the people that knew her and loved her. Amy, in all her magnificence, is gone. Even when we leave this courtroom and when he's locked away, there will not be closure. Justice will have been served, but her family, her friends, for me, the scar of her loss will haunt us to our last days. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Please stand.
Narcissist, spineless, small. Those are just some of the nicer words I would use to describe Gareth Pursehouse. The kind of person who would make a plan to terrorize and kill a beautiful, innocent woman in the prime of her life. Someone half his physical size. It wasn't even slightly a fair fight. All because he couldn't have her. Dr. Amy Harwick. She was every ounce as impressive as she came across. Amy spent years of her life putting herself through school, ultimately obtaining her doctorate. All she wanted to do was help people, especially women. She guided victims of domestic abuse with such care and compassion, all while maintaining perfect professionalism, her clients never knowing just how deeply she understood their struggles. She was the kind of person who, no matter how much she had going on, and she always had a lot going on, would make time for the people she cared about. I don't think there was one time in 14 years that she ever left me hanging. She was a rare breed, and her losses felt every day. February 15th used to be my birthday. Now it's the anniversary of one of the worst days of mine and so many others' lives. I learned what it feels like to black out from grief that day. That's the day I lost one of my favorite people in the whole world. The kindest, most vibrant woman you'll ever meet died alone, scared and in pain. Your home is supposed to be your safe space. You hear stories about bad people breaking in and lying in wait, and it's every girl's worst nightmare. As a child, you're scared of the monsters hiding under your bed. But somehow, you grow up and convince yourself that these things will never happen to you or anyone you know. That is no longer the reality for so many of us. We install cameras and check the closets before going to bed. We have all been forced to look at our loved ones and ex-loved ones a little more closely. Our trust shattered. Because the boogeyman is real. And he's someone that I used to share laughs and late night apple pie with. He had hours to change his mind while he waited in the dark for Amy to come home. He could have backed out at any moment, but he chose to carry out his sick plan. He sat there and texted girls that he was romantically pursuing, making out like he was busy running errands. Murdering my best friend of 14 years was little more than an errand to him. He had years to move on, to better himself, but he chose to do the opposite. He harassed, stalked, and ultimately killed Amy. A couple of years behind bars will not magically fix him. Nothing we do will bring Amy back, but the only semblance of peace we hope to have moving forward is to know that this coward will never be able to hurt another woman again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Rudy Torres.
I wasn't really sure what I was going to say coming up here. I was looking over the guidelines and I just kind of got stuck on the how do you feel? I haven't really gave it much thought. The last few years I've been in and out of this courtroom, but just about every procedural minutia, every hearing, to make sure that this man is held accountable. The entire time I've been more focused on how other people feel. The people that can't walk in this whole courtroom. The people whose personal triggers just won't let them walk in here. The people that can't be here. I've been in and out of this courtroom, sitting back here, make sure this man never feels enough comfort to look over his shoulder and not know that somebody is here for Amy. I'm tired. I am broken. My friend was a beacon of light, and while she may have been dimmed, her legacy will shine on. This man needs to be held accountable. He needs to be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Abusers like him get a pass for way too long before they get it, before they end up here. He needs to be made an example of. That this type of behavior is not acceptable. My friend is gone. I'm pretty chatty for an introvert, so I don't really have too many friends, so the few that I have mean the world to me. And she's gone. Nothing's gonna change that. I just miss her. I'll never hit that long-winded phone call of her explaining what she needs help with, when the answer is always yes. It's going on 20 years, the answer has always been yes, but she's still. I never get that call again. In my darkest hour, she was there. She listened to me. I hope that in her darkest time, I was a good friend. This man needs to be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kelly Halston.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Needless to say, I had a very different letter drafted until District Attorney Avila explained to me that the purpose of speaking today is to convey Amy's character. And to share how this horrific crime has affected us. I had a lot of words for you, Gareth Pursehouse, but I will hold them today. It feels truly perverse to focus on my pain, but I understand that doing so can help the court grasp the catastrophic impact this murder has had on all of us. So I'm going to do my best to briefly express that. Amy was smart, kind, and filled with electricity. She loved cannolis, coupons, and her cat Marquis. She was perpetually curious about life, the future, and the complexities of human behavior. She really liked to help those she kept close, empowering and employing her friends and connecting women in her field. She also liked to help people she didn't know, volunteering her time and therapeutic expertise to help the most stigmatized members of society access life-saving mental health care. Aside from being a thoughtful friend, she helped keep me safe. About a year before her murder, I had a frightening encounter with an ex at my home. My first instinct was to call Amy. She told me to pack my bags and come over immediately. So I did. I stayed with her for about 2 weeks, often sleeping in the same bed because we were both too scared to sleep alone. She was more afraid than I was. Now I understand why. Sometimes I still catch myself daydreaming about the other ending. The one where she's the hero. But no matter how much I bargain or try to negotiate reality, I can't break this spell. I can't bring her back. I really hate that. After the police had collected all the evidence from her home, it was turned over to her family as is. Fearing her parents would see the aftermath of her murder, myself, along with her friend Dolores, cleaned up the devastation that was left behind. What could be cleaned, at least. I'm grateful I was able to do this for Amy. I'm very grateful. I'm also traumatized from what I saw, sensed and experienced firsthand in her home. Since then, I've dealt with anxiety, night terrors, and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Like Grace, I check the showers and the closets. I can't fully express what the experience took from me, but I know no mother or father should ever see what we saw, and I thought they never would have to. But because this case went to trial, her family and friends have had to endure footage of the crime scene, along with the horrific morgue photos, autopsy photos, and infuriating body cam footage. Our grief has been commodified and streamed for public consumption, left out in the open to be critiqued and corrected. The after effects are colossal and impossible to quantify, let alone cram inside of these words. But mostly my loss is Amy's loss. Her life and all the magical things she had left to create were stolen from her when she was murdered by a man that stalked her for a decade. She was taunted, tormented, and terrified for years. Her death is not karma. It's not kismet. She should be here on Earth with us, but instead we're all stuck in an uncanny valley trying to process the impossible. Making sense out of the senseless is a task akin to shoveling oneself out of an ocean. Your Honor, I ask that Gareth Persas receive life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The last person that will statement, and then I'll read Marshall Herman's statement. This is Marcy Mendoza.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
I tried to edit this down to not be as long so we can get through this, but I'm going to start. Amy was a powerful force in this world. She was beautiful, thoughtful, vibrant, intelligent, hilarious, quirky, neurotic at times, driven, motivated, altruistic, and compassionate. No words can really express her character or her heart. You just had to know her to experience her light. You wouldn't know it from looking at her from the outside, but Amy lived in fear for the last almost 10 years of her life. This wasn't just one night of terror for Amy. This was almost 10 years of trauma, much of which we did not hear about in court. We barely scratched the surface of the trauma she endured due to the actions of Gareth Persas. Amy, her family, and her close friends who were acquainted with Gareth lived in terror along with Amy. Her pain was our pain. Her fear was our fear. He mentally and physically abused her, stalked her, hacked her accounts, tried to alienate her from her dearest friends, posted revenge photos of her, commented horrible things about her on the internet, and tried to ruin her career. After all that he did, he then tried to rekindle a relationship with her, saying he loved her. The audacity, Gareth. For him to believe that Amy would want to rekindle their relationship after all he put her through showed me just how clueless, delusional, apathetic, and unapologetic he was for the pain and difficulties he caused her. When all he did to try to hurt her life and career, he failed to keep Amy down. She made lemonade out of lemons, and when she rebuffed his advances after the award show, he couldn't take it. He lacks remorse for her murder and for the trauma he put her through the past 10 years. The only reason she was kind to him when she saw him at the XBiz event was partly because she was a kind and compassionate human being, but mainly out of fear. Fear of what he would do if she inadvertently said the wrong thing to him. 10 years later, she was still living in fear. This man felt entitled to have Amy in his life, and when she very kindly said no thank you, and the kindest no thank you I've ever heard anybody give, he couldn't just walk away like a real man. He took it upon himself to take her life. If I can't have you, no one can. This man, who self-professed loved her, terrorized her, and murdered her in cold blood. And then after murdering her, he decides to not admit his wrongdoing, but instead take it to court to put her family and friends through a very long, painful, and arduous trial. Zero remorse, zero compassion, zero accountability. I suffer from depression. This has been my toughest time. He took Amy, my voice of reason, when I feel I can't continue on. This man took my friend of 20 years, my confidant, my partner in our great times and our lowest times, my cheerleader, my inspiration. He took our inside jokes, he took our annual themed birthday parties, he took our future collaborations, he took our future memories, our future tears of joy and sadness, he took our future travels, our adventures, he took our late night calls and random texts, he took our pajama parties, he took the breakthrough moments of healing of those she would have helped through her humanitarian work. He took the change she would have continued making for her, myself, and those around her. He took us sitting in rocking chairs in our old age listening to Depeche Mode while sipping tea. He took infinitely more than I can describe here with words. He took a beautiful light. She spent a quarter of her life living in fear. Nobody should have to live that way, except for him. He deserves to live in fear. He deserves to have to look over his shoulder every day and wonder if that'll be his last. Based on his lack of remorse, lack of empathy, and vindictive nature, I fear for my safety and the safety of those she loves. I plead for the court to please give him the maximum sentence allowed, not only for my safety or her loved one's safety, but for the safety of the general public. Please give Amy justice and those she left behind some peace of mind. Gareth, I went with Gabby to the funeral home to do Amy's makeup, and I got to see her before all the makeup was applied, before she was made to look viewable for the public. And that was the day that I decided that I could not forgive you. Because I'm a very forgiving person. I can forgive everybody. I forgave my father's murderer, but seeing her that way and how she fought for her life, there's no forgiveness for you. To quote Jeff Buckley, she's a tear that hangs inside my soul forever. Thank you, Your Honor, for your time and for allowing me to speak to the court today.
Thank you, ma'am. lastly, Your Honor, read a statement from Michael Herman. He is one of the victims named in the burglary count. It is really difficult for me to talk about how I'm affected when it was someone else that died while I lived. It feels ungrateful, like I should just be grateful to be alive and that should be enough. Where do I even start? Gareth Pershouse didn't just take Amy's life, he completely devastated mine. I should probably start by saying how much I enjoyed life before this happened, and so did Amy. I was just really happy with where my life was, and so was she. Things were really well for both of us after some difficult times. Nearly 4 years later, and I still haven't reached 50% of where I was before this happened as far as being happy with my life and success. I was unfortunate enough for this to happen right before the COVID pandemic shut everything down. My ability to access any kind of mental health services was practically non-existent, and finding a therapist who was equipped enough to even consider treating my level of trauma was impossible. I spent quarantine and the better part of the entire year trapped in my head, alone with my thoughts. I paced around 9 to 10 hours a day, replaying that night in my head, unable to stop picturing what he was doing to Amy when I heard the silence. Talking to the detectives, hearing the detectives search through the house as they were piecing together what happened, and realizing the absolute horror that Amy went through while I was trying to get help. All of this compounded my anxieties. For 6 months, whenever I tried to sleep, all I could think about was Amy trying to breathe, that awful sound that haunts me to this day. I really didn't sleep much at all the first 9 months. At times, I debated checking myself into a hospital because I was so delirious from pacing around and not sleeping. There were times when I would pace around 24 to 36 hours until exhaustion took over enough for me to rest. I remember my legs aching from pacing around, my mind replaying over and over what happened to Amy. I paced so much that I lost toenails on each of my feet. My psychiatrist told me that as soon as this happened, it probably changed me as a person. My family noted this change in my personality immediately, before even knowing about what happened. It was significant and obvious a change to them, one they picked up instantly. This is incredibly difficult for me because it's so hard to even look at what's happened and how it has affected me without feeling guilty for surviving. My psychiatrist said that these things take 9 to 10 years to recover from. And I remember it exhaling and saying, I can't feel like this for 9 to 10 years. I'll kill myself. I can tell you that it has affected my whole world, even nearly 4 years later. In the time since what happened, I have spent tens of thousands of dollars on psychiatric help for my depression and PTSD diagnosis that was a result of that night. I will likely be in therapy and psychiatry trying to recover from this trauma for the rest of my life. I'm self-employed, and it's no small miracle I was able to hold on to my business after Amy's murder. I lost clients, I lost business, and I lost some really big deals. Financially, there was a significant toll as a result of my traumatized mental health state. Fortunately, I have landed with my family and was still able to support myself, but my thoughts were constantly intruded upon by that night. Every single minute of every day at first. I couldn't get that night out of my head. Then you get a few more free minutes each day. It was so difficult to keep business afloat. I already work a lot of hours, but I had to work 78 hours a week just to accomplish 40 hours of work a week because of how preoccupied my mind was. Part of what was the way to take my mind off was work. The events of the night turned my life upside down in every way. I've lost relationships because of the way that this has affected me. I avoided social media for 3 years because of Amy's murder. I didn't want any part of it. I just wanted to check out. This was all during quarantine, so I couldn't even escape the social media like most everyone else was when in isolation. I was trapped in my head the entire time. I didn't want anything to do with society. I was really withdrawn, and I was content thinking that I would be isolated from society for the rest of my life. It has affected me physically. I experienced all weird things you don't hear about with PTSD. You feel different, and then you realize you've lost some of your empathy. I began to experience sleep paralysis so regularly that it happened nightly for weeks. Even now, nearly 4 years later, my partner regularly has to wake me up from nightmares that I still have to that horrific night. I am paranoid now. When I hear something, it triggers me. After Amy's murder, when Gareth Persons was out on bail, I was worried about him coming after me. Once he was back in custody, I was worried about what he would do if he were to somehow be found not guilty. Now I worry about him getting out of prison one day. The thought of him ever getting out of prison terrifies me, especially after seeing just how selfish and calculating Gareth is, how he will never admit or accept responsibility for what he's done, and how he's always going to claim to be the victim. I know that if he even gets out of prison, he's going to blame me for his failure to get away with what he did to Amy. He's not going to take responsibility for anything he's done, ever. He doesn't care one bit about what he's done or how his decisions affected other people. I know that people's lives were damaged far worse than mine. A life was lost, a daughter was lost, a family was irreparably harmed. I had only known Amy for 6 months. Amy was loved and respected by so many people who are also deeply affected by the tragic loss of such an incredible and intelligent woman who was dedicating her life to helping other women escape abusive relationships like the one Gareth Pershouse that she had survived years before. It's impossible to calculate how many lives her death has impacted further, or how many others she could have helped had she been allowed to live out the rest of her life peacefully. But if this helps you when considering his sentencing, I can tell you that life was good before this happened for a lot of us, for me, for Amy, and for many others. She was happy, excited about where her life was going, and really believing that she was on track for where she wanted to be. Even knowing her the short time I did, I could see what an accomplished, glowing person she was, inside and out. It is a tragedy that her work and excitement and verve for life were cut short. I've seen friendships ripped apart in the wake of Amy's murder. Amy was the glue that held a lot of these friendships together. I watched them fall apart in her absence. It is so difficult to sit here and put into words how this has affected me when her death has affected countless others. I have this special mix of survivor's guilt and emotional trauma. I'm a bundle of damaged goods where I'm just trying to recover from being so screwed up in the head from this. I was always pretty resilient and have seen my fair share of life's difficulties, but this, by far, has been the most difficult and damaging experience of my life. I pray for the peace of knowing that Gareth Pershouse will never get out of prison. I pray for that peace for myself, for Amy's parents, and for all who loved her. I pray for that peace and justice for Amy.
All right, counsel. Let me ask, does counsel for the defendant waive time for arraignment and judgment and sentencing?
The issue of the probation report,
Yes, do we have one?
we do not have one.
Okay,
I understand that court can order one.
we will. I think one has been ordered.
And we do not want Mr. Pershouse interviewed for the probation report. And I will be submitting a defense statement pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.01 to go to CDCR along with the probation
To be
report.
incorporated in that file?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, having said that, any legal grounds why judgment should not be pronounced?
No, would the court like the time credits?
Yes, you can do that.
I believe there's 1,390 days of actual time served.
Okay.
That's calculated from February 15th, 2020 to today's date.
All right, noted.
He was out on bail, but he was wearing an ankle bracelet. So I believe those dates also should be included in the credits.
So the amount that you gave is the aggregate of all of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes?
as far as restitution, I have submitted documents for restitution to the Victims' Compensation Board in the amount of $7,500.
Got that?
And I have submitted documents to the defense for restitution to the victims' parents, Tom and Penny Howick, in the amount, I believe it's about $25,000. There may be a dispute as to dates. We're hoping we can resolve that issue on a later date without, I don't believe, I think counsel will waive the presence of her attorney for that purpose.
I believe Mr. Pershouse will waive his
All right.
presence.
Do you want me to order it today, and then if it needs to be tweaked or modified, the court will do so at that time?
I think we'd like to just have the amount determined at a later date.
Okay, I can certainly order the Victims' Compensation Board amount.
Right, that I
$7,500.
don't think there's a dispute.
Right, but there remains
fine.
the $25,103.95.
Right.
All right, for lodging and travel and parking and meals and so forth.
Right, I think counsel wants to dispute some of that amount, so we could do that at a later date. The $7,500 for the Victims Compensation Board, I don't believe there's any dispute as to that amount.
So, do you want me to set a date in the future, or do you want to notify my clerk when you've reached an agreement and then calendar it at that point?
I think the court's gonna need to make the determination.
Right, but do you want me to, once you've reached that, the court can then set it, and then you can advise the court as to what you've reached?
We won't be able to agree.
Okay, you
I'm
won't be able to
gonna
agree?
ask for the full amount of the $25,000.
Oh, I thought you guys were gonna try to work it out, I misunderstood.
No,
Okay.
it's a dispute as to, when the trial started, or should the reimbursement go all the way to August 8th?
Okay, so I take it that you will be submitting to this court as something that will outline all of those days?
Yes.
Okay, and then the court will ultimately decide that?
Yes.
Okay. That having been said, the defendant is presumptively ineligible for probation, absent a special finding that this was an unusual case where the interest of justice would be served if probation were granted pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203, subsection E1. In view of the nature and the underlying charges, as well as the conduct engaged in by the defendant, this court is not inclined to impose a probationary sentence and/or make a finding that the imposition of a probationary sentence would be in the interest of judgment. Accordingly, it is a judgment and sentence of this court that the defendant shall be sentenced to a term of life without the possibility of parole with respect to count 1 for the underlying murder charge, coupled with the special circumstance allegation alleged under Penal Code Section 190.2A15. As to count 2, the first-degree murder, the defendant shall serve the midterm of 4 years. However, the term shall be stayed pursuant to Penal Code Section 654. Did I say first-degree murder? I meant the count 2 first-degree burglary. I misspoke. But that shall be stayed pursuant to 654. Thus, the defendant shall receive a total sentencing term of life without the possibility of parole, and with the 4-year midterm with respect to the burglary charge to be stayed per Penal Code Section 654. Defendant is to make restitution to the Victims Compensation Board in the amount of $7,500 for burial costs. I understand that the parents have incurred additional cost in that nature. Is that correct?
Yes.
Defendant is to provide all appropriate DNA samples as dictated under Penal Code Section 296. Pay a restitution fine of $300. The court will stay the parole revocation fine of $300. He's to pay a court security fee of $40, a criminal convictions assessment fee of $30. He's also prohibited from owning, purchasing, receiving, possessing, or having under his custody or control any firearms, ammunition, and ammunition feeding devices, including but not limited to magazines, and you are also to relinquish all firearms in the manner provided under Penal Code Section 29810. Mr. Pursehouse, it is my duty at this time to advise you of your appellate rights. You have the right, absolute right, to appeal from the judgment of this court in imposing sentence on you today. That means that if you wish to appeal, you must file your written notice of your intention to appeal within 60 days from today. An appeal not filed within 60 days shall be void and of no effect. The notice must be in writing and signed by you or your attorney or both of you. It must specify what you are appealing from, whether it is the whole judgment or just part of the judgment. If you appeal and do not have the financial ability to retain the services of an attorney to represent you on appeal, the appellate authorities will appoint counsel to represent you. In that regard, it is your obligation to keep the appellate authorities advised at all times of your current residing address, so that they can be in touch with you to advise you of your appointed counsel. I'm going to set a future date with respect to the restitution aspect going to the parents. I expect that you will have some kind of itemization regarding the days of lodging, the days of travel, the days of meals, and so forth. So I would expect that. How much time do you need? Going into January, obviously.
Right. I need to get some more receipts from them regarding maybe meals and other expenses that they did not include at the beginning. So I just need about, can we do this in January?
Yeah, this guy has to go to January. We're dark starting the 16th.
So whatever's
15th is the last day.
Whatever's convenient for council in January.
Let's see. What about January 31st? Is that a good day? That's a Wednesday.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
So that'll be set for 8:30. In the meantime, prior to that date, submit an itemization,
Yes.
if you will, and then I'll set it for restitution at 8:30. All right?
Thank you.
All right, that'll be the order. Thank you.
Can the audience remain seated until the defendants are in the courtroom?
All right, we stand in recess.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Linda, sorry, I was getting a little bit of feedback, so I missed your question, but I think you were asking about the cross
Yes,
during
go ahead.
that
Go ahead.
exchange.
Yeah, tell me about the cross.
Yeah,
and
so
whether
let's
or
get
not-
into that cross. First of all, during cross, they asked him some simple questions. They said, okay, you claim this is an alleged YSL hangout, a stronghold. Tell me, it was a white building. What did you see at this gas station? Did you see any gang graffiti? The officer replied, no. Did you see any gang signs, any gang paraphernalia? Nothing. He said nothing. He said, in your report, did you document that there was gang activity? And that officer said no. So obviously during cross-examination, they're just trying to set up that despite what may have been said, they made it very clear, at least this is what the defense was getting at, that there was no signs of any gang activity that evening.
And let me ask you this, because he identified Young Thug's brother, did he say that he identified him after, or did he know him on the spot? And does that give an implication then that Young Thug's brother had some type of criminal record? Is that what he was trying to imply also by the immediate identification?
Right, so he actually had no idea who he was until he ran his ID. That's when he was able to confirm it. But when you talk about identification, kind of a moment of levity in the courtroom, when I looked over and saw the defendant, during cross-examination, they asked that witness, they asked that police officer, they said, did you see Mr. Greer in the courtroom? And he said, yeah, I think I saw him this morning. He was sitting in the back. Well, if you've been following this case, you know that Mr. Greer is actually in prison right now after violating his probation after he struck a plea deal. So there was a couple smiles and laughs coming from some of those defendants during that cross-examination.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, a lot of our viewers, Michael, had the question of how could a witness be credible if he identified somebody being in the courtroom that he's talking about. It turns out that witness was not in the courtroom. So you're reporting, as usual, Michael, spot on. We're going to let you go right now because we know you have to get back. Hopefully lunch will be over. Hopefully the jurors will find a way to be fed. And we will see you again for your next reporting gig. Thank you so very much. And we're going to continue right now with our Q&A, as we mentioned, because just what Michael Seiden was talking about, you have the same questions that he was reporting about. So let's go on. And by the way, we have a new guest who is joining us, Joseph Scott Morgan, who was here with, obviously, Bob Hilla, who's staying with us. But I'm going to start with you, Bob, because I'll let Joseph get up to snuff with this case. This is from Rod Springs from YouTube. They've watched a lot of trials and never seen a witness who totally refused to answer a question and the judge not direct them to answer. Have you ever seen that happen?
You rarely see that happen. I can't recall the last time I've seen that happen. It doesn't bode well for the witness and whether the jury is going to be receptive to that witness at all then.
Yeah. And Joseph Scott Morgan, okay, I'm going to have you involved in this young thug case on the last issue that Michael Seiden talked about. And this is from Real with Robo from YouTube. What do you all think? And that's all three of us, I guess, about the witness identifying the attorney as someone else. So, Joseph, you're a juror. You're not a lawyer. You've been an expert witness a lot of time. If you're a juror and you're sitting there and found out that the witness misidentified somebody as being in the courtroom when they're actually sitting in the clink, what would you think?
Well, again, kind of parroting what Bob had said in this matter, it goes to credibility, doesn't it? You kind of knock out the underpinning relative to, the veracity of anything that they might say. And so it is a bad look, going, kind of getting into the guts of the case here. For anybody that has the inability to positively identify somebody like this. Quite an amazing bit of courtroom drama there.
Yeah, a lot of courtroom drama. So then we have a question, Danny from YouTube. I'll take this because it's quick. Did Fannie Willis remove Miss Love from the case? I think we kind of touched upon that earlier. Even though she's not in the courtroom, there's no indication she has been removed from the case. Lawyers are allowed, with the judge's permission, sometimes to not be in a case and let other lawyers deal with the witnesses that they have been assigned, especially in a case this long. So, Bob, back to you, Bob Hilla, okay? Unknown Me from YouTube asks, what would it require to have the judge removed from a trial at this early stage? In other words, has the judge done anything wrong? Can he be removed?
Well, one of the things is that the judge has already prejudged one of the defendants and has expressed that in the context of the trial, not necessarily even to the jury. And if it comes out that there's some sort of a connection that the judge has to the lawyers or the witnesses or the parties, but that usually gets hashed out. And there are obligations on judges to recuse themselves from cases if they have a situation where there could be the appearance of impropriety or a connection that might create bias. But in any event, just because a judge gets mad at a lawyer or makes a comment or gives error, that may be a basis for an appeal, but it's not necessarily a basis to take the judge off the case.
Oh, very interesting. So Tippy Lynn from YouTube also has a question for us. And Joseph, you've been there. Why was a witness allowed to use the report on the stand that wasn't his? Have you ever been in a situation?
No, never, ever. Well, hang on. Yeah, with the exception
caught you there, Joseph.
Yeah, you did. With the exception of me being included as referencing me in an autopsy report that was generated by a forensic pathologist that I had brought a case in, that I was working the case. Yes. So in that case, but it is atypical, Linda. As you well know, your dear husband is a forensic pathologist, and we're kind of married to one another in that environment as investigators and pathologists. And so that in that context, yes, but most of the time, this is a rarity that you would see this being allowed.
Yeah, when it's allowed, though, it's allowed to refresh a recollection. And it's very interesting because You don't realize, people don't realize this, but you can use anything to refresh your recollection. If I got off here and went over to Bob Hilla and grabbed him and brought him over and said, does this refresh your recollection as to who's in the studio with me? I could do it. I've seen people argue to the judge, hey, I could borrow a toilet bowl to refresh your recollection, judge. And actually, they're correct. Just to refresh recollection, not to testify off the report, but to see if they can remember something that they may have been involved in. So let's go now to Cavello from YouTube. Cavello is following this trial, Bob Hilla, so he knows a lot about it. Pressure's on, okay? Did it seem as though the cop witness over-rehearsed his testimony and slipped up like he saw the person in the courtroom? It's the same issue we talked about. This is on everyone's mind. And the person wasn't there, couldn't have been there because he was in prison.